Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtedar Khan, your host. And today I'm going to do something we love doing every year. We're going to talk about the events, the most important events that shaped the year 2024. This is from a global perspective. I will do one more from an Indian perspective and perhaps from the global South perspective later on. But today I'm talking about the 10 events, 10 developments that I think have most impacted the world in 2024. So I'm going to talk about them, but before that, do subscribe to Khanversations if you have not already done so. One of the things that has happened in this year is that Khanversations has crossed 125,000 subscribers. Thanks to all of you for that. So please continue to subscribe. Maybe, inshallah, soon we will reach 1 million subscribers. Meanwhile, I want to also wish you all happy holidays, whether you're celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Happy New Year, any other festival that you're celebrating. Happy holidays to you all. And don't forget to subscribe to Conversation. So I think the most impactful, and most of you will agree, event of 2024 was the return of Donald Trump as president of the United States. You may like him, you may not like him, but his story is, at least for those who admire him, it is a fantastic story. It's a comeback story. The liberals and the Democrats tried their best to make sure that he did not win. The entire legal system was used against him. They put him under courts, I think 34 indictments against him. He was spending more time in court sometimes than actually campaigning. The entire media was also, at least the mainstream and legacy media, was against him. And basically everybody in the world seemed to have thought that he would be wiped out, but he came back, and he came back in a very significant way. Now Donald Trump has the Supreme Court in his pocket. He has the US Senate. He has the Congress. He won the not just the Electoral College, but also the popular vote. That clearly says he is in a very, very strong position. And apparently, after he got elected, his approval ratings have gone up to 55%. To give you an idea of how important that is, Joe Biden's approval rating is around 34%. 66% of Americans disapprove of Joe Biden. And one of the corollaries of Donald Trump's success has been the utter humiliation of Joe Biden. I don't think any American president has been so humiliated in recent history. He was kicked out as unfit by his own party. His own party thought he was unfit, even though he had won the primary. And also the story of Joe Biden's humiliation goes along with the story of how the Democrats lied to Americans, consistently saying he was fit and he was bright, he was cogent and he was smart. And so talk about lying. Some of the closest allies of Joe Biden are liars. So having said that, I think clearly the number one event of the year is the return of Donald Trump. He's going to upturn a lot of things. He's going to disrupt international affairs and domestic politics. It's quite possible that he may even divide America furthermore. And there are going to be some really, really testing times for America and rest of the world going forward. I will obviously be talking a lot more about Donald Trump going forward because he's going to be here for 4 more years. The second event that I think is very significant is that the ICJ approved the request by the International Criminal Court to issue a warrant for the arrest of Netanyahu for committing crimes against humanity. He's accused of trying to starve the Palestinians, killing indiscriminately, etc. Even though it is quite possible that he will not be brought to justice, thanks to America, the country that believes in rule of law, which will destroy ICJ and ICC rather than see justice prevail in this world, while simultaneously talking and preaching about rule-based order. I think that still the arrest warrant issued for Netanyahu, in spite of all the efforts by Western countries to, institutionalize double standards in the world. So when Netanyahu does something, we don't do anything. When Putin does something, we immediately issue arrest warrants, call what he does there genocide, and so on and so forth. So it was, I think, a victory for the small guy. It was a victory for those who have been bullied by the United States in international relations. So in that sense, I think it is a very important event that an arrest warrant was issued. And who knows, the European countries may show some backbone. So the only country in the world where Netanyahu probably will be able to go to is India and the US. The only two countries which will not respect international law. The number 3 event that I think is critical is the uprising of Bangladesh. What has happened in Bangladesh is significant because what we had seen during the rise of Sheikh Hasina was electoral autocracy. She was winning elections by rigging them up, by putting the opposition either in exile or in prison, very heavy-handed, even though she did achieve some success in the economic sphere, creating a very export-oriented Bangladeshi economy. So she did have some successes, even in the diplomatic arena, balancing India and China and so on and so forth. But I think the transformation of Bangladesh, at least in the assumption, or if we assume that it's going to become a liberal democracy going forward under Muhammad Yunus, that he will have elections soon in 2025, and he will liberalize Bangladesh both politically as well as economically, then perhaps it is a major event. But for now, we will give Bangladesh the benefit of doubt and consider it as one of the major developments of 2024, as you are already aware, and I have also done a conversation on that. The Economist magazine has picked Bangladesh as a country of the year. So it is an important event. Number 4 is the whole year itself. It was a year of elections. There were elections. Apparently, 4 billion people voted in 2024, even in countries which are not seen as democratic, like Russia. There were elections, and Putin got elected and others got elected. So it was an important year. And not only was it an important year, but it also came up with some very significant results. It has been a good year for parties which are center-right or far-right even, whether you see in England, even though the Labour has come to power, you saw significant resurgence in far-right parties in England. You saw that in France. You saw that in Germany. In India, Narendra Modi is also a center-right party, which has held on for the 3rd term. And of course, in the United States, you saw the victory of Donald Trump with his MAGA crowd, which is perhaps America's version of the far right. So elections are, in my opinion, one of the key developments of the 2024. And of course, a corollary to that is the rise of the right. Number 5 is more of a Middle East related thing. I think that the direct attacks on Israel by Iran and the war in the Middle East, and of course the transformation of Syria, are all the changes that have taken place in the Middle East. I think the 2 of the changes, significant changes, or rather 3, is the decline of Hezbollah. And clearly, you can see that Israel and its allies have had victories in Syria as well as in Lebanon. But Iran's direct attacks on Israel, both in April and October, are significant because it has been a long time that Israel was attacked by another country. So regardless of what happens going into 2025, it is quite possible that the United States will impose a lot of pressure and may even give permission to Israel to directly attack Iran and also the Houthis. But regardless of what happens in 2025, I think Iran's direct attacks on Israel they kind of open the door to something that should not be something that makes Israel happy. Number 6 is the return of protectionism. Apparently, tariff is the word that Donald Trump likes the most in the English dictionary. But even before he actually becomes president and levies tariffs, he has promised to impose tariffs on China, on BRICS countries, across the board, 10 to 15%. We'll see what he actually achieves. Even before he could actually implement, we have seen there are countries which are caving in, like Canada. Trudeau came running to Mar-a-Lago after Donald Trump threatened to impose 25% tax on everything from Canada. But even before that, Joe Biden himself had levied 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, and so did Canada, and Europeans have followed suit. Not that high tariffs. I think the European tariffs are around 40%, but nevertheless, a tariff war or protectionism has begun. This is the beginning of deglobalization. One of the key elements of globalization is free trade. I mean, the United States keeps talking about free trade and free world, etc. The whole purpose of the Indo-Pacific is to keep the Indo-Pacific region free. Well, how can it be free with all these tariffs and protectionist measures being taken? I think it could lead to fragmentation of the global economy. We are talking of various developments like reshoring, bringing back manufacturing to the United States. There have been lots of foreign direct investments in the US in the last 1 year. It's been the biggest beneficiary of these protectionist strategies because many countries, fearing that tariffs will go up, have started the process to manufacture in the US itself, especially Germans who want to make their cars in the US to get around the expected 15 to 25% tariffs that Trump might impose. But nevertheless, I think we are entering a new era, which is not the era of globalization. We can call it many things, reglobalization, deglobalization, etc. But let's wait and see how the world changes in 2025 before we give it a name. And of course, on the 7th, this was the year of the wars, 2 major wars that were fought, and they're still ongoing. These are Joe Biden's never-ending wars. These are wars that Joe Biden chose. And I consider him as the principally responsible for both the wars. I disagree with this profound analysis by American thinkers that the reason why Russia is in Ukraine is because Putin is crazy, and the reason why we have a war in the Middle East is because Hamas is brutal. Hamas is brutal. Putin might be crazy, but I think the fundamental reason why we have 2 wars is that the expansionism of the West, expansion of NATO into Eastern Europe triggered Russia, and expansion of the Abrahamic Accords in the Middle East basically triggered Hamas. And of course, there is an ongoing occupation of Gaza with the never-ending occupation of Gaza and West Bank with direct protection from the United States. So wars are going to happen there again and again and again until America and Israel decide to kill all Palestinians, commit a perfect genocide. Then there will be nobody to protest. Or there will be constant desire for freedom among people who are under oppression. Well, let us see. We are lucky that Biden lost the election, but I think if Biden had won in 2024, then Israel would have 4 more years to kill Palestinians in Gaza. That's not going to happen. I think Trump may give Israel the green light to attack Iran, or maybe not, but I think he's not going to let the war prolong, and he's certainly not going to be sending America's billions of dollars to Israel. Number 8 is the year of immigration. I think immigration has become one of the biggest issues in the West in particular. Immigration, the fear of immigration, the fear of immigrants, xenophobia, racism, all of this are on the rise, and they are concomitant with the rise of the far right, both in Europe and the United States. One of the key reasons why Donald Trump has won this election is because of the fear and anger towards unrestrained immigration, the illegal kind under Joe Biden. And you can see that even in Europe, immigration has become a big issue. And it will continue to remain, I think, in 2025 as one of the key issues, especially if Donald Trump acts on his threat towards mass deportations. So you're going to see some really ugly images coming out of the United States if Donald Trump really decides to deport by force millions of people who are in this country. The 9th thing that I think has been very important in this year is inflation. Inflation is, I think inflation is like sugar. It's like diabetes is to human beings. It eats you from the inside. And I think inflation also does that same to a country's economy. It undermines growth, it undermines development, it undermines employment. It creates a lot of unhappiness. One of the reasons why Donald Trump won the election is because even though the US economy is doing well because of inflation, most middle and working class people thought that they were not doing well. They were not feeling that they had enough money, primarily because of inflation. So I think at the number 9, some people would even place it higher. This is the year of inflation. It has impacted economies in the global south, who have also been impacted by the 2 wars, which has added to the cost of trades, food, fuel, fertilizers, etc. And finally, I also see this as the rise of non-Western countries, like the rise of BRICS. We saw just last week a meeting of D8, Development 8 nations. These are 8 Muslim countries who met, who have doubled in the past few years their own internal trade. So there is a lot of South-South cooperation taking place, and the most spectacular or the most prominent of that is the rise of the BRICS and the expansion of BRICS to BRICS Plus. In many ways, BRICS has a greater share of the global population and also a greater share of the global GDP in terms of PPP, that is, once you adjust for parity, so purchasing power parity. So in that sense, this is one of the years in which we saw the rise of non-Western countries, increasing cooperation among them. And the most prominent among them are obviously China, Russia, India, and Iran. And you see Iran, in spite of all of the US efforts, has become increasingly part of the international system. It has become part of BRICS. It has joined the SCO. Iran was part of B8, the meeting that was held in Cairo most recently. So we see the emergence of non-Western minilateral arrangements, and that tells you that even though the United States is still contributes, US economy is 25% of the global GDP. The US is the most powerful country in the world, but we are steadily moving towards a multilateral system. So these are the 10, I think, developments of 2024, which are impactful. And so I hope you find them interesting. Think about them, reflect about them, see how they're going to influence 2025 and beyond. So I hope you found it interesting too. So please subscribe to Khanversations, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this video with your socio-political network. And in case you don't watch any more Khanversations, wishing you a happy new year. Take care.